Heartwarming discoveries. Billionaire stumbles upon incredible twin girls at son's grave. Their tale may change everything. Jonathan Whitmore stood at his son Ethan's grave, his heart an aching void beneath the vivid autumn leaves. The colors were almost too vibrant for the sorrow that enveloped him, a cruel reminder of the joy that had been ripped from his life. His fingers trembled as he laid flowers on the headstone, each petal a whisper of love for the boy who would never grow up. The grief that consumed him felt insurmountable, this hollow feeling like a gaping hole where his hopes and dreams once resided. As he silently mourned, the laughter of children broke through his desolation. 2 10-year-old girls, twins with curls the color of autumn sunlight, bounded toward him. Their wide, innocent smiles caught him off guard. They were so full of life, so carefree. It ignited a spark deep within him, a flicker of something he had thought extinguished. A wild mix of emotions washed over him: grief, nostalgia, and an inexplicable longing. Who were they? Why were they here? He learned they were Lily and Grace, 2 girls living in a rundown trailer at the town's edge, their circumstances a stark contrast to his world of privilege. They laughed about hunting for food, trading wildflowers for meals, their laughter mingling with the rustle of falling leaves. Each story they shared was a mirror reflecting the values Ethan had lived by: hard work, perseverance, a spirit unbroken. But doubt crept in. What was he doing here, surrounded by heartbreak yet drawn to these girls? The townsfolk eyed him suspiciously. A billionaire seeking redemption through 2 orphaned girls? The whispers slithered like shadows, clawing at his determination. Could they be right? Were his intentions selfish? And yet, as he watched the twins pick dandelions, their sheer joy pushed back against his self-doubt. Maybe he was meant to protect them, fill the void left by Ethan's absence. Suddenly, the urgency of his situation escalated with the arrival of Clara, a predatory social worker who sniffed opportunity like a shark. She assessed the twins, sizing them up as potential profit rather than vulnerable children in need of care. With every moment that passed, Jonathan felt that fierce protectiveness reawakening within him. He had to save them. The desire to be a father again coursed through him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The community meeting loomed ahead, thick with judgment. As Jonathan prepared to speak, he could feel the weight of their disapproval hanging over him. It was as if each stare was a reminder of his failures, of the man who had lost it all and yet dared to believe he could forge a new family from his devastation. Would they ever see him as more than a wealthy outsider, a savior looking for redemption? His muscles tensed, thoughts racing wildly: protect them, find common ground, or retreat back to his empty world. Standing in front of those judgmental faces, Jonathan's voice caught in his throat. He felt the eyes of the room pull him apart, each one questioning his very existence. With every heartbeat, he stood at the edge of a precipice. Would he risk it all for Lily and Grace, binding his fate to theirs? The air turned electric, the tension building. It was a moment where every second stretched on infinitely, leaving him teetering between a life of isolation and the warmth of a family he desperately craved. Jonathan's heart raced as he stood before the gathered townsfolk, each pair of eyes scrutinizing him, dissecting his every move. It felt like standing naked in front of a group, exposed and vulnerable. He could feel the whispers quaking through the air, the skepticism palpable. Yet he had come here with a purpose far greater than simply assuaging his own guilt. As he cleared his throat, preparing to speak, the weight of his own motivations crashed over him like a tidal wave. His thoughts spiraled, searching for the right words that could express who he really was beneath the facade of billionaire Whitmore. He wasn't just a man in an expensive suit clutching a checkbook. He was a grieving father, desperately trying to heal wounds that ran deeper than any monetary wealth could comprehend. People of Fairview, he began, his voice steadying as he locked eyes with the audience, grounding himself. I stand before you today not as the man you assume I am, but as a father who knows loss all too intimately. The honesty in his voice caught even him by surprise. He felt the warmth of vulnerability, a bridge into the hearts of those judging him. It was true his wealth could initially sway opinions, yet it was his authenticity that would ultimately forge alliances. He continued, "When I lost my son, I thought the hole in my heart would consume me. But through Lily and Grace, I found a purpose, a chance to revive hope amidst darkness." As he relayed the twins' stories about their resilience, their laughter against the backdrop of their circumstances, he could feel tentative nods among those who had labeled him an outsider. Jonathan spoke of the values instilled in him by his late son, of community and compassion. The narrative shifted from self-discovery to collective connection, and with every passing word, he felt the elation of personal transformation bubbling up within him. The faces before him morphed, skepticism intertwined with curiosity. Would they accept him? As he gave everything to this moment, exposing his regrets, dreams, and desires, he realized he was confronting not just their doubts, but his own fears, his belief that he was less worthy of a second chance due to the riches amassed in his life, which had done little to shield him from sorrow. When Jonathan finished, silence hung in the air, an expectant pause that felt heavy with implications. Clara's eyes flickered, calculating, always watching. He could sense her still yearning to exploit the twins, which only solidified his resolve. He would not allow their innocence to be claimed for profit. A new weight of determination settled upon him, the stakes had escalated. "Clara," Jonathan finally said, turning his attention to her with unwavering firmness, "these girls deserve more than a mere transaction. They deserve a chance to choose their own path, intertwined yet independent from any expectations." Igniting fervor in his declaration, the tension in the room shifted, inching toward a compelling verdict. But was it enough? Jonathan remained quietly tormented by self-doubt, aware that victory or failure hinged on the fragile string of acceptance from a community steeped in suspicion. He had taken a stand. But what came next would reveal the true nature of his journey, whether this act of bravery would earn him allies or further isolate him. The question lingered in the air, pregnant with potential. As murmurs broke the silence, Jonathan could sense the shifting tides. The moment was far from over, it was merely a catalyst for what lay ahead. Would he further expose the rustic charm of this town, or would he remain an anomaly, shunned by those he sought to protect? In that charged atmosphere, one thing rapidly crystallized in his mind: this was merely the beginning. The ghosts of his past would either haunt him or propel him. The time had come to face what he had long avoided, a confrontation with Clara that would serve as the litmus test for his future with Lily and Grace. The murmurs swelled around him, each voice an echo of skepticism, curiosity, and lingering doubt. Jonathan felt the weight of the moment press against his chest, as if the very air conspired against him. Clara's piercing gaze, slicing through the crowd, held a challenge. He was aware that to turn his back on her now would be to concede defeat, to surrender the fragile bond he was forging with the twins. Clara stepped forward, the confidence of her public persona in stark contrast to Jonathan's vulnerable stance. "You preach of compassion," she said coolly, her tone slick with condescension. "But tell me, Jonathan, where was your compassion when you turned your back on the past to build your empire?" Each word was a dagger, aimed to pierce not just Jonathan's facade, but also the heart of the connection he was trying to build with the community. He could feel his footing slip, the ground beneath him shifting, as thoughts flooded his mind. Was he truly worthy of changing the narrative, of offering hope? Yet there was something within him that resisted the defeat she sought. "I recognize my past mistakes," he replied, voice steady but low in volume, forcing every syllable as if it bore the weight of truth. "But it is what we do now that defines us. I'm here not to rewrite history, but to build a future, one that gives Lily and Grace the opportunities one failed to provide my son. It's about more than wealth. It's about legacy." For a moment, Clara was silent, evaluating his response, and in that pause, Jonathan sensed a flicker of doubt within her, an uncertainty in her calculated demeanor. The townsfolk seemed to lean closer, intrigued, as though they were straddling a precipice. Were they on the verge of seeing him as an ally or an intruder? He took a breath, grounding his own swirling thoughts once more. This confrontation with Clara would not only define his standing in Fairview, it would also unlock a door to his own potential. Each word he shared could serve as a stepping stone toward a more profound understanding of what it meant to fight for those he loved. Clara's expression changed, shifting from calculated to cunning. And what happens when those girls inevitably disappoint? What then, Jonathan? Will you isolate yourself again, or will your fortune protect you from the pain? The question hung ominously in the air, each syllable a sharpened weapon. Jonathan knew all too well the gravitational pull of disappointment. He had felt it in every fiber of his being upon losing his son. Yet, what Clara didn't grasp was that pain could also be a powerful teacher. The night he had buried his son had been the catalyst for his transformation, a moment that had thrust him from despair into determination. "I will not run from pain," he declared, feeling a newfound resolve swell within him. "Pain is a part of life, Clara. It can forge connections deeper than any surface-level fortune. I refuse to let fear dictate my choices. I'm here to uplift the twins. If I'm willing to embrace vulnerability, then others in this town should find the courage to do the same." The reactions of the townsfolk led Jonathan to believe his words struck deeper than mere bravado. Gradually, expressions of skepticism began to soften, the atmosphere shifting as they contemplated his truth. Yet he could feel the tenuousness of this newfound connection. Clara's eyes darkened, laden with intensity as she scanned the crowd, her posture turning defensive. "This isn't over. You may be able to sell the townsfolk on your sob story, but remember, trust is earned, not given." With one last look, she retreated, leaving Jonathan standing amidst a sea of ambivalence. Though he felt a mixture of triumph and vulnerability, he knew this chapter was only the beginning. He decided he must act swiftly and strategically. Facing Clara had peeled away some layers of his own doubts, but the challenge ahead remained formidable. Jonathan began plotting how to foster transparency and connection with both the twins and the community in ways that would effectively challenge Clara's influence. In the depths of his mind, he sensed this confrontation with Clara was just the first of many. It kindled a flicker of hope that perhaps he wouldn't just be judged by his past, but could redefine it through his actions. As he looked towards the twins with renewed conviction, Jonathan couldn't shake the sense that a larger confrontation loomed on the horizon, one that might ultimately tear the illusion he had crafted apart. The stage was set, the game beginning to take form, and with it came the dawning realization that his battle against Clara had just ignited a more daunting conflict within his very soul. Would he find the strength to stand not just against her, but against his own fears as he pushed to reclaim purpose, healing, and belonging? He took a moment to breathe deeply and regroup. It was time to develop a plan. What he didn't yet realize was that the answers he sought would reveal shadows from his past he had long avoided. Jonathan stood still for a moment, absorbing the remnants of the confrontation. Clara's words reverberated in his mind like the tolling of a bell, each chime stirring the deeply ingrained fears he thought he had buried. He was standing on the threshold of something transformative, yet the potential for self-doubt loomed like a dark cloud overhead. Could he truly rise to the challenge of creating something meaningful for Lily and Grace, or would he falter under the first sign of strain? He turned away from the now dispersing crowd and wandered toward the edge of the park. The world around him buzzed with life. Children laughed, dogs barked, and couples strolled hand in hand. Each sound was an echo of the moments he missed with his son. The pain still felt raw, almost tangible, as if it wrapped around him like a blanket he couldn't shake. With every step away from the crowd, he became acutely aware of how much he had removed himself from the community, seeking comfort in isolation rather than confrontation. It was time to change all that. Jonathan needed to transform this moment into a catalyst for deeper connection, not just with the twins but with himself. He wasn't just fighting Clara's skepticism, he was battling the remnants of his own fear. What good was wealth if he couldn't invest it in relationships that mattered? Disappointment was inevitable, but as he examined the intricacies of his feelings, he realized that vulnerability might not be a weakness, it could be his greatest strength. He decided that the first step was to directly engage with the twins. They had already become symbols of hope in his quest for redemption. Jonathan remembered their laughter and the way their spirits seemed unburdened by the weight of the world. They deserved more than sporadic mentorship, they needed someone committed to their journey. After taking a moment to collect his thoughts, he pulled out his phone and texted Lily, "Can we meet?" I'd like to talk about some ideas I have for us. The response was almost instantaneous, sure. When and where? Her enthusiasm fueled Jonathan's resolve. There was magic in their dreams, and he was determined to be a part of that. As he prepared for the meeting, Jonathan's mind whirled with ideas. He envisioned a series of workshops, creativity sessions that would encourage the twins to explore their passions. They could design a project together that served the community, anchoring their talents to something larger than themselves. But as he mapped out his thoughts, an unsettling sense of inadequacy bubbled beneath the surface. What if they stumbled? What if Clara's words about disappointment echoed in their hearts? He pushed the thought away. He had to embrace the possibility of failure as a natural part of growth. By confronting his own fears, he could model resilience for Lily and Grace. The approach would require transparency about his past and his desire to rewrite their futures. But the unknown didn't terrify him as much as it had before. Each revelation unearthed new power within him. When the time came to meet, Jonathan stepped into the cafe, a local spot he had often avoided, preferring the anonymity of city life. The twins were already seated at a small table, bubbling with energy, every bit a reflection of their namesake. As he approached, he noticed their bright smiles softened any doubts that lingered. "Hey there. I have some ideas," Jonathan began, his voice steadier than it felt. "I want us to do something together that matters. Something that could not only help you both but maybe even the people around us." Lily leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "What kind of something?" Jonathan hesitated, vulnerable again, but chose to move forward. "Maybe a project that connects the town in unexpected ways. We can explore art, technology, you name it. But I want us to commit to it together, even if things don't go as planned. It's okay to stumble." Grace's brow furrowed slightly. "What if we let you down?" A familiar, tender ache welled up within Jonathan as he recalled the greatest disappointment of his life. "We'll learn together. If we only strive for perfection, we miss the beauty in imperfection itself." As the conversation unfolded, he sensed a shift within himself. It was no longer about the specter of Clara or his past but a collective journey towards growth. The twins listened intently, adding their ideas, their laughter weaving into a tapestry of shared dreams. But in the rear of his consciousness, Clara's warning still lingered, a reminder of the fragility of trust. Despite their burgeoning connection, could this alliance withstand external pressure? Jonathan understood that the tides of doubt and fear would likely resurge, testing his resolve at every turn. As they planned together, he couldn't help but wonder what other hidden pieces of himself would surface in this uncharted territory. The moment felt electric, and yet he knew he was just at the beginning of something monumental. The conversation pulsated with potential, but the road ahead promised challenges that could unravel all he sought to build. Would Jonathan be able to withstand Clara's relentless scrutiny? His resolve ignited within him, yet the uncertainty shrouded the path, suggesting another confrontation lay waiting in the shadows, one that could risk everything he had begun to forge. The days that followed were filled with an electricity that Jonathan hadn't experienced in years. The workshops with Lily and Grace began to take shape, each meeting igniting more ideas, all fueled by the enthusiasm of the twins. With every session, he witnessed their creativity blossom, their fears dissipating in the wake of shared laughter and vision. However, beneath the surface of his growing excitement, an undercurrent of anxiety clung to him, a constant reminder of the heights he was aiming for and the potential depths to which he could fall. Jonathan found himself surrounded by a whirlwind of sketches, brainstorming notes, and half-finished prototypes, but he still felt an emptiness. He had all these ideas, but was he truly equipped to guide the twins? They were young, vibrant, full of potential, and here he was, a man haunted by his past mistakes. The anxiety bubbled. What if his insecurities leaked into their optimism? The ticking clock of doubt pushed harder against his mental barrier. Each time they met, Jonathan faced a critical decision. Should he share the raw truth of his experiences with the twins? He wasn't sure if they were ready to hear of his failures. But then, they were investing their trust in him, and he knew he couldn't build a foundation of connection on anything less than honesty. Growing up, He'd always been taught that vulnerability was a critical asset. But could he practice what he preached? The fear of letting Clara's echo blanket his resolve weighed heavily. One afternoon, amidst their scattered papers and laughter, Jonathan decided it was time to let a crack in his armor show. "Guys," he began hesitantly, the words wrapping around his throat like a choke chain, "I need to tell you something about my past. It's important because I want you to see I'm not perfect, and that's okay." They stopped, the air thickening with curiosity. Lily exchanged a glance with Grace, their expressions shifting to one of attentive concern. "What do you mean?" she asked gently. Jonathan took a deep breath, grounding himself in their unwavering gaze. "I've made choices that hurt people I loved. I've missed important moments in my son's life because of those choices. Learning to navigate that pain is a continuous journey for me." "I don't want." Before he could finish, Grace interrupted, her brow furrowed. "But look at what you're doing now. You're trying to make a difference. You're here with us, and we're not disappointed. You're showing us how to create." Her sincerity startled him, and for a moment, doubt edged away in the presence of their bravery. But could he actually believe their encouragement? Could he allow himself to grow alongside them, without the fear of failing them hovering like a specter? That evening, as Jonathan lay in bed, he wrestled with his own self-judgment. Each thought flashed reminders that the journey of growth wasn't an easy road. It was jagged, uncertain, and filled with the potential for missteps. The awareness that he intended to lead them through a process that had once defeated him clashed violently with the budding trust he felt with the twins. Then it hit him like a wave. He had stumbled once before, but that didn't mean he couldn't rise again. His mistakes, while painful, had forged a knowledge he could impart. What if, instead of simply guiding, he approached this endeavor as a collaborative effort? He could allow them the chance to teach him, just as he could offer them his wisdom. With newfound clarity, Jonathan resolved to address the elephant in the room he barely noticed. The next time they met, he would drive the conversation toward building not just a project but a solid framework of mutual growth. They would explore their passions and, in doing so, he would find his own perch atop the journey of rediscovery. But lurid thoughts of Clara's scrutiny crept into his mind. Would she recognize the transformation he sought? Was their future connection strong enough to withstand her critical gaze? As the weight of uncertainty returned, Jonathan acknowledged it, the journey toward personal growth had just begun, and the stakes rose with every choice. Together, he whispered to himself, staring at the ceiling. "We'll rise together." As he drifted into uneasy sleep, a flicker of awareness danced around the edges of his thoughts, hinting at a crossroads. The next meeting beckoned, and something told him this path would force him to confront the fiercest battle yet against the lingering specters of doubt that threatened to shatter his newfound resolve. What decisions lay ahead that would test both him and the twins in ways he had yet to comprehend? The morning sun filtered through the window, casting a warm glow across Jonathan's cluttered workspace as he prepared for the meeting with Lily and Grace. The day felt different, the air was thick with the promise of change, yet his nerves swirled like a tempest in his stomach. With each sketch he reviewed, he felt a pull between confidence and self-doubt, an internal battle that threatened to overshadow the burgeoning creativity around him. As the twins arrived, their energy sparked a fire within him. They were bubbling with contagious excitement, unaware of the turmoil quietly boiling behind Jonathan's carefully crafted demeanor. He greeted them with a tentative smile, the weight of his insecurities settling heavily on his shoulders. He knew he had to push through the tightness in his throat and embrace the imperfection of the moment. "Hey, guys. I'm glad you're here." His voice carried an uncertain cheerfulness as he gestured to a larger, blank canvas laid out on the table. "Today, let us talk about how we see our project growing. I want us to share ideas freely." They both leaned forward, exchanging glances filled with unspoken understanding. Grace was the first to respond, her voice sharp with enthusiasm. "We've been brainstorming a new angle. What if we incorporate more about our experiences in the project? Like, what it means to us personally." Jonathan felt a rush of admiration for their initiative. In that moment, it became clear to him that he couldn't merely be a guide. He needed to collaborate, allowing their voices to steer the direction as much his own. That's an incredible idea. I'd love to hear what you both think this project represents for you. As they delved into their thoughts, Jonathan felt his chest unclench. He was no longer a solitary figure weighed down by past mistakes but a partner in a creative journey that was blossoming before his eyes. Their voices merged into a symphonic flow of ideas, weaving together notions of identity, resilience, and hope. The room filled with the sound of laughter and brainstorming, each contribution building upon the last. But then, as they moved deeper into discussion, a sudden shift in momentum jolted his confidence. Jonathan knew he had to share his truth, to reinforce the foundation of trust they were building. He paused, feeling the familiar hesitance rise within him. Before we go further, he began hesitantly, there's something I want to say. I told you about my past struggles, and this project is as much a part of my healing journey as it is for you. I want to be completely open with you too. Lily's brows furrowed in concern, and Grace leaned closer. What do you mean, Jonathan? Taking a breath, Jonathan pushed through the edge of vulnerability he often avoided. I came to realize that my mistakes still loom over me. Sometimes I don't feel qualified to lead this project. But I want you both to know that growth is not linear, it's filled with detours and setbacks. I don't want you to think I've got it all figured out. The twins exchanged another glance, their understanding clearly evident. Lily responded, her tone soothing. We all have our baggage, Jonathan. What matters is that we're here, moving forward together. You don't need to be perfect. Jonathan felt a swelling gratitude radiating through his core. Maybe, just maybe, he could indeed awaken his own potential and theirs in tandem. This collaborative energy held the weight of healing not just for him, but for the twins as well. As the afternoon waned, the bond between them solidified with every shared laugh and deep discussion. But lurking beneath the surface was a new thread of uncertainty. As much as he sought to embrace this momentum, shadows of doubt crept in, echoes of past failures whispering caution. Would he slip back into old patterns, undermining the growth they were striving for? As the meeting came to a close, Jonathan's heart raced with the realization that the path ahead was riddled with challenges. They were climbing together, but what if the weight of his past threatened to pull them down? A new tension gripped his thoughts, leaving him acutely aware of the stakes involved. The moment of truth loomed as he adjusted his focus back to the twins. Let us meet again soon, he suggested, but next time maybe we can tackle what it means for us to embrace our individual journeys, even if we stumble along the way. With that, the air thickened with anticipation. Jonathan felt the edges of his resolve sharpen in that moment, but the looming specter of his self-doubt gave no sign of retreat. What internal battles awaited him in their next meeting, and would he emerge unscathed from the crucible of vulnerability that lay ahead? The following week, Jonathan found himself ensconced at his desk, papers scattered like the remnants of a chaotic mind. The sun hung low in the sky, its dull glow barely penetrating the haze of anxiety clouding his thoughts. After their last meeting, hope mingled with fear, creating a potent concoction that left him feeling both invigorated and overwhelmed. He had opened up, but the uncertainty of their future loomed larger than ever. He rifled through sketches and notes, feeling an urge to provide the twins with something truly impactful. Yet, every idea he conjured felt insufficient, as though he were deftly weaving the threads of inspiration only to have them unravel before he could grasp the whole tapestry. Anxiety gnawed at him like a persistent itch beneath the skin. Focus, he whispered to himself, but the words had little potency. He found himself staring blankly at his own reflections in the glass window, pondering whether he was capable of the authenticity he craved. Could he truly guide the twins while navigating his own battles? With a sudden burst of resolve, he grabbed the largest sketch pad and began to draw. He didn't focus on perfection, he needed to explore the rawness of creativity. Each stroke of his pencil became cathartic, a release of pent-up emotions drawn from the depths of his frustrations and fears. As he sketched, the image of three figures began to emerge on the canvas, one authoritative yet shadowed, two bright twins shining with untamed potential. He leaned back in his chair, allowing the image to sink in. Was he overestimating the twins' ability to steer their shared journey? Were they, in fact, reflections of his own aspirations? The thought struck him sharply. Maybe, rather than merely leading, he could also learn from their innocence and courage. Each unique perspective could construct a bridge to understanding not just what it meant to heal, but how to embrace imperfection. Hours passed, and when he finally lifted his hand from the paper, he felt a peculiar sense of clarity. This wasn't just a project, it stood as a collective embodiment of their trials, joys, and the complexity of their identities. Perhaps by sharing this work openly, he could relinquish some of the weight he held onto a personal choice laced with trust. The next meeting approached quickly, and the night before it arrived, a knot of tension tightened in his stomach once again. Would sharing this drawing reveal too much about his insecurities? Still, he recognized that vulnerability was essential to their bond. He spent the evening practicing what he might say, wrestling with the idea of potentially exposing raw aspects of his journey to the twins. Would they be receptive, or would doubt slip in, pulling him back into solitude? The morning came, and with it, another layer of determination. As the twins arrived, their buoyant spirits washed over him, brightening the room where shadows of uncertainty had lingered. Lily's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm, while Grace radiated curiosity. "Jonathan. You won't believe the ideas we've pooled this week," Grace started, her voice a melody of excitement. "Great. But before we dive into that, I want to share something," Jonathan interjected, the moment stretching between them like a thin thread ready to snap or strengthen. He revealed his drawing, allowing the twins to absorb its contours. "This represents our journey. I want to showcase not only your voices but mine as well. I've struggled, but I'm hoping we can capture that complexity together." The air shifted as they peered at the artwork, silence hanging heavily before Lily broke it. "This is powerful, Jonathan. It's raw, and it's real. Just like us." As they began to dissect the significance of each figure, Jonathan felt the flutter of hope overcoming self-doubt. But a looming awareness reminded him that the real challenge lay ahead: how to share his ongoing struggles while fostering a space of growth for the twins. The stakes continued to rise. As their discussions delved deeper, Jonathan caught a glimpse of what lay ahead, a merging of past and future that might demand even greater vulnerability. The moment of truth approached. Could he fully embrace and articulate his journey while simultaneously helping them find their own voices amid the clamor of their collective anxieties? Would the weight of his past allow for a transformative present, or would he stumble once again in the process of becoming? The energy in the room felt electric as Jonathan observed the twins mesmerized by the drawing, their voices weaving a tapestry of excitement. It became clear that their reaction was not just about the art, it was an invitation for him to delve deeper into the precarious balance of guiding them while unearthing his own truths. "I love how the figures reflect our complexities," Grace said, pointing at the intertwining shadows and light in the sketch. "What do you think this means for our project?" Lily, still gazing at the drawing, chimed in, "Yeah. If we want to make something impactful, we need to be honest like this. People connect with real stories, don't they?" Jonathan nodded, but inside, he grappled with the weight of their words. They were right, of course. Authenticity resonated. Yet, the thought of laying bare his vulnerabilities felt formidable. Would his struggle seem trivial in comparison to their youthful ambitions, or could it serve as a reflection of resilience? As they brainstormed ideas for their project, Jonathan noticed a significant shift in his own perspective. The twins, brimming with aspirations, reminded him of the importance of bridging personal experience with creativity. This was not merely about instruction, it was a shared odyssey, an opportunity for co-evolution. "And what about including our thoughts and insecurities?" Grace suggested, her eyes twinkling mischievously. "You know, if we're all honest, we can really connect with others." Jonathan inhaled sharply. The suggestion pierced through him. A question bubbled in his mind, seeking an answer he wasn't ready to confront. Was it wise to divulge his own insecurities? What if doing so cast a shadow over his role as a mentor? "Let us explore that," he eventually replied, masking his internal turmoil. "We could create a piece that incorporates individual narratives, honest reflections from all of us." The twins cheered, and for the first time, Jonathan caught a glimpse of a path forward, one where they could share the richness of their experiences, untangling narratives of hope and vulnerability into a cohesive expression. It felt exhilarating but terrifying. As the planning progressed, Jonathan felt a growing desire to honor their creative process not only with guidance but with his own experiences. However, the unease of revisiting his past clung to him. In every discussion, he felt room for both revelation and retreat. That evening, Jonathan found himself grappling with sleeplessness again. The pencil hovered above a blank page, yet he felt paralyzed. The drawing had been a revelation, a realization of the amalgamation of their identities, yet conjuring the words to express his darker moments proved more daunting. Questions spiraled in the stillness. What journey was he unwilling to undertake in front of them? Was he rooted in fear of being seen as weak? Or was it a protective instinct to shield them from his complexities? The thoughts smashed against one another, each demanding his attention, but he lacked clarity. He took a deep breath and pulled himself out of the pit of uncertainty. Jonathan sat up, a sudden clarity emerging. He still had time. This was a process he could navigate alongside the twins. Together, they could cultivate a space of acceptance, where stories of struggle and triumph existed harmoniously. With newfound resolve, he opened his sketchpad once more. This time, he began jotting down fragments of his story, each word a step toward revelation, a precursor to the honesty he craved. The dawn crept in slowly, ushering in a soft pink hue that filled the room, guiding his thoughts. But as light streamed through the window, so did a fear of the unknown engulf him once again. How would the twins respond to the shadows from his past if he shared? Was he truly ready to confront not just his own journey, but also the weight of their reactions, whether acceptance or disbelief? It dawned on him that the potential for growth stretched far beyond his individual fears. The paths of their interwoven stories danced just out of reach, daring him to grasp them fully. Jonathan closed his eyes, bracing for what lay ahead, a confrontation not just with the twins' expectations but a reckoning with his own view of vulnerability as strength. Clarity and fear felt synonymous in that moment. The next meeting loomed, and with it another chance to redefine their bonds and his own perceptions. Could he articulate what had shackled him for so long while catalyzing their aspirations? The stakes were higher than ever, and the clock was ticking. The moment to unveil his truths would soon arrive, and he could no longer hide. The morning sun glistened against the screen of Jonathan's laptop, creating an almost blinding glare that made the room feel both warm and unwelcoming. He squinted, his thoughts racing through every detail of the twins' project swirling in his mind. In just a few hours, he would meet Grace and Lily again. His heartbeat quickened, each thump mimicking the pressure of overspilling emotions he had kept at bay for too long. As he prepared his notes, Jonathan regretted that he hadn't gone further in articulating his own narrative the previous night. There was a tightness in his chest, an unyielding weight telling him that something integral was still missing. What if they all stumbled upon their energy together, untethered and unashamed? He resolved to initiate the meeting with a personal anecdote, a calculated risk amid the palpable excitement of their creative quest. If authenticity was the cornerstone of their work, shouldn't he, as their mentor, lead the way? But the shadows of doubt remained formidable, whispering fears of judgment and misalignment with the twins' youth and aspirations. Arriving at the studio, he noticed the space transformed into a whirlwind of artsy chaos. Canvases were propped against walls, vibrant paints spilled across palettes like playful confetti, and the momentum of the twins was infectious. Grace was scribbling furiously in her sketchbook, while Lily rearranged some of the canvases to create a spontaneous installation. Their enthusiasm wrapped around him like a warm embrace, and for the first time, Jonathan felt a flicker of hope amidst his turmoil. "Hey, Jonathan. We were just working on a title for our project." Grace beamed, her eyes sparkling with possibilities. "We're thinking something like In Shadows and Light to echo your drawing. Or maybe Unraveled," Lily added, her enthusiasm unyielding. "It represents how we're exploring our own insecurities." "This is amazing," Jonathan said, genuinely impressed. Their instincts for encapsulating the theme were sharp, fueled by vulnerability he once feared embracing. And yet, there he was, standing before them, a vessel of coiled tension, torn between encouraging their artistic evolution and confronting his own. "What's the story behind the titles?" he asked, hoping to gently navigate them towards deeper themes. Grace smiled affectionately. We want people to connect with our struggles, to see they're not alone. That's what makes art resonate. Jonathan nodded, trying to muster the courage to reciprocate. How could he emphasize their brilliance while revealing his own flaws? Speaking of connection, his throat felt dry, the words obfuscated by the anxiety spiraling within him. He could sense the twins leaning forward, attentive and waiting. Jonathan took a long breath, summoning every ounce of courage. I think it's important to share some of my experiences too, not just mine but the struggles that have shaped me. The twins exchanged glances filled with encouragement, pushing him to continue. I've faced numerous challenges that I masked as strength. At times, I've been afraid to acknowledge feelings of failure and fear, convinced that showing vulnerability would undermine my ability to support others. The admission hung in the air like a heavy fog, filled with anticipation. Wow, Grace said quietly, her expression shifting into one of empathy. That's brave, Jonathan. A moment of silence enveloped them, not uncomfortable but sacred, as each absorbed the foundation of shared authenticity they were building. I want to explore this. Your idea to incorporate personal insecurities, it could deepen our project. Jonathan felt lighter, as if chains binding him dissipated into the air. Yes. Lily said, her excitement palpable. Let us do it together. We can write letters about our insecurities, things that are hard to share. Jonathan's heart swelled at the prospect of unearthing vulnerabilities together, marking the beginning of their transformative exploration. This was not just about art, it had transcended into a mutual healing space. The studio buzzed with ideas, and after fleshing out their project outlines, Jonathan felt an undeniable shift within himself. The act of sharing, of collectively tapping into their vulnerabilities, might just forge a connection stronger than he ever anticipated. But hidden behind that sweet exhilaration was a graze of apprehension, creeping into his thoughts as they prepared to finalize the details. Dare he let them in completely? What if their perception twisted the lie he had harbored? As they dove deeper into their plans, Jonathan understood that the moment of truth, his true unveiling, was no longer just a looming shadow but a vibrant path ahead. He realized that every brushstroke created would blend their stories, united in authenticity. Yet, the next step loomed large. How much of his narrative was he willing to invest in their shared journey? The thought complicated his newfound excitement, nudging toward a reckoning he had yet to fully embrace. The clock ticked stiffly against the wall, reminding him that time was precious. Meeting the twins at the crossroads of their artistic odyssey was only the beginning. Without warning, a stirring urgency unfurled. He sensed a new threshold awaiting behind the door, where deeper layers of truth were eager to surface. Could he summon the courage to redefine vulnerability in a way that would change not just their project but their lives forever? The answer felt tantalizingly close, compelling him forward into uncharted territory. The meeting with Lily and Grace marked a pivotal shift in Jonathan's journey. Gone were the days of wrestling with his insecurities in isolation. Now, they were embarking on an adventure together, intertwining their narratives toward a collective vision. As they gathered, Jonathan felt a newfound sense of purpose. The twins had arrived with fresh ideas, each radiating energy that was contagious. Their laughter echoed through the studio, solidifying an atmosphere ripe for creativity. Today, we create something that resonates with every heart, Jonathan declared, the words escaping him with surprising clarity. He felt the warmth of affirmation ripple through the air as they all eagerly convened around a large canvas that would be the centerpiece of their project. The collaborative spirit enveloped them, pushing Jonathan to confront his hesitations. This project isn't just for the community anymore, it's about our growth too, he stressed, his hands gesturing toward the large canvas. It has to be personal. As they sketched and painted, Jonathan's resolve strengthened. Flashes of memories danced in his mind, his son's laughter, the gaping void that had festered since Ethan's passing. Yet now, amidst the vibrant colors and animated discussions, he felt alive. Each stroke on the canvas became a dialogue between their experiences, revealing the profound connection they shared. Let us include the struggles in our narrative, Grace proposed, her voice vibrant with excitement. She looked at Jonathan, eagerness shining in her eyes. Our fears can become our strength, right? Jonathan felt it then, the urge to lay bare his truth, to share the depth of his journey. You're absolutely right. We all bring something valuable, he said, his heart thrumming with anticipation. I need to share pieces of my life too. My fears. My failures. It's a part of crafting this connection. The twins exchanged knowing glances, affirming his decision. Encouraged by their unwavering support, Jonathan dug deep and began recounting moments that shaped him, his mistakes, the loneliness that had crept into his life, and the haunting disparity between wealth and fulfillment. With each revelation, he stepped closer to authenticity. I lost sight of who I was for so long, he admitted, his voice steady yet vulnerable. I thought emulating strength meant hiding my scars. But I see now that it's our imperfections that unite us. The power lies in our ability to learn from the pain. Grace and Lily listened intently, their expressions reflecting profound empathy. That's what makes our art real, Lily said softly, brushing her fingertips over the canvas they'd worked on. We can show everyone that it's okay to feel lost sometimes. A flood of emotion surged through Jonathan. The acceptance he found in their willingness to embrace imperfection galvanized his spirit. This was not just about creating a project, it was about healing, for them all. Their collaborative atmosphere blossomed as they continued discussing how each of their stories intertwined with the artwork. The twins had transformed into talented storytellers, weaving narratives that reflected resilience, hope, and authenticity. Jonathan felt immense pride. These were not mere students, they had become partners in exploration. But there remained an unshakable truth: this revelation was only a fragment of what they would face as their project progressed. Clara's looming presence felt like a storm cloud on the horizon. How would the greater community react to their story? Would skepticism undermine their journey? No sooner had they begun to map out their themes than Jonathan felt clarity pierce through his thoughts. He vowed to maintain unwavering support for Lily and Grace, ensuring they confronted challenges together rather than allowing fear to divide them. The meeting culminated with a celebratory air, laughter ringing out like a melody that lingered long after the session ended. As the twins prepared to leave, Jonathan glanced at their work adorned with vibrant color and chaotic emotion. In that moment, he understood the value of their partnership transcended anything he had ever achieved. Remember, Jonathan called after them as they headed toward the door, we're in this together. No more shadows, only light. Together. They chorused, their exuberance infectious. Before the twins vanished into the late afternoon sunlight, a thought crossed Jonathan's mind: this journey was a two-way street. Just as he was teaching them, they were teaching him the power of courage, the importance of vulnerabilities, and the elegance awaiting in the perfect imperfection of life. As they left, Jonathan stood quietly in the studio, absorbing this new essence of purpose. Between brushstrokes and shared dreams, a profound transformation unfolded within him. Not only did he feel clearly defined, but he had also conquered self-doubt, finding solace in the authentic connections they had forged. Jonathan turned back to the artwork, a vibrant tapestry that encapsulated their journey, and allowed himself a moment of quiet. The colors blended together like their stories, each hue distinct yet inherently linked. This was the realization of a dream once dimmed, a representation of healing, empowerment, and shared discovery. As night approached, Jonathan knew with unwavering certainty that he had finally stepped into his own light, one that not only protected but also celebrated the beautiful messiness of being human. The path ahead would continue to reveal obstacles, potentially painful truths, yet in the bond with the twins, he felt no fear, only hope. Jonathan had achieved a profound personal metamorphosis, transforming pain into purpose. He was ready to face the world, as a father to his newfound daughters, an ally to their artistic journey, and a man carrying the weight of a deeply fulfilled life. Now that you've witnessed Jonathan's profound transformation, you need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more dreamers. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Jonathan's future. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion.